What is going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q here from Retro Q Gaming, and today we are going to talk about video game adaptations. Now, video games have been adapted into many different types of media. They've come across from straight up video games to books, comics, cartoons, anime, live action TV shows, live action movies, and even animated full feature length movies and all as well. Now, the reason why we're talking about this today, we'll get to a little bit later in the video, but before we do, it's perfect that we explain a little bit of the sordid history of video game adaptations. Because let's face it, there have been many of them over the years, and video game adaptations have not been portrayed well, if you ask me, and if you ask the vast majority of people, critics, and just public opinion. Sure, there's one or two more recent success stories. You had the likes of the Castlevania anime, which is, if you ask me, a bit above average. I don't think it deserves the massive amount of praise that it gets, but I think it's just comparative, considering that almost everything else in the non-video game media that is making the transition is usually shite. So when it comes to Castlevania being average / a little bit above average, it stands out a bit more. And of course we have The Witcher as well, which I haven't seen myself, but has been getting very positive reviews. But then you think of, sure, that's two examples of high profile, really popular ones that are coming up nowadays. But then we look back to stuff like Super Mario Bros., Double Dragon, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Wing Commander, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Lara Croft Tomb Raider The Cradle of Life, House of the Dead, Resident Evil Apocalypse, Alone in the Dark, Doom, Blood Rain, Silent Hill, DOA Dead or Alive, Resident Evil Extinction, Postal, Hitman, In the Name of the King, A Dungeon Siege Tale, Far Cry, Max Payne, Street Fighter The Legend of Chun-Li, Tekken, Prince of Persia The Sands of Time, Resident Evil Afterlife, Resident Evil Retribution, Silent Hill Revelations, Need for Speed, Hitman Agent 47, Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, Resident Evil The Final Chapter, Tomb Raider, Rampage, Dead Trigger, Detective Pikachu, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Monster Hunter, to name but a few. And that's only going off the Hollywood live action list, let alone the upcoming stuff or anything out of Japan. But the point is, many of the films we just mentioned, pretty much everything except Sonic the Hedgehog and Detective Pikachu really, have been completely shite and completely panned. Not to mention, probably half of those are made by Uwe Boll, worst filmmaker in history. Until Kojima fully transitions to making films, and then he'll probably take over as the worst film director ever. So why are we talking about all this today, and why is it relevant to this video? Well, recently there was an announcement that PlayStation / Sony were teaming up with HBO to officially make a Last of Us TV show. Thankfully, this Last of Us TV show is going to be produced by HBO, and it's going to follow the story and the events of the first game, not the absolutely awful trash one that is the second game that is some of the worst writing in every capacity, in every shape, form. Now, of course, some of the big questions on everyone's mind, because The Last of Us Part 1 is a much-loved game. I love it myself. I don't think it's the masterpiece everyone claims it to be, but I still think it's an exceptionally high-quality game. So it's very important to many people out there when it comes to who can portray the actors and characters in said show. Now, I couldn't really nail down an Ellie actress simply because it's kind of a little bit outside my wheelhouse about who would play them. Obvious joke about Ellen Page in there. But I was always pretty convinced that they should cast Joe Manganiello, look him up, as Joel. He already looks like him. He's even more bigger and jacked up than Joel was. And if you've ever watched True Blood, you know he can definitely pull off a southern accent. But no, overnight, last night, it has come out that they have officially cast Joel and Ellie in the Last of Us TV show for HBO. And Joel is going to be played by none other than Pedro Pascal, aka The Mandalorian, aka Oberyn Martell, aka the only person who could actually act in Wonder Woman 1984. Now, I think this is a decent casting choice because he's a very good actor, and he's got plenty of time to bulk up a little bit to play Joel. And of course, with styling and makeup and whatnot, they can easily pull that look off on him. And not to mention, if you've seen Mandalorian, it's basically The Last of Us in space anyway. Rough and tumble, almost pseudo-outlaw, comes into possession of a younger character that they pretty much hate and have to deliver somewhere against their wishes. But through a series of unfortunate events, becomes more attached than a parental figure, and the rest is history. Now that's only Joel's side of it covered because we now officially have Ellie's cast as well. And in this case, actress Bella Ramsey has been cast as Ellie from The Last of Us. Naturally, Oberyn Martell we all know for his famous fight scene, and Bella Ramsey, of course, known as Lyanna Mormont. Now people might be a bit strange about this simply because she's a relatively unknown actress other than that. But she's won awards for her acting, so, and what we've seen in Game of Thrones, she can probably pull it off. But anyway, that's it for the moment. We'll have to see what else is cast and what comes out storyline-wise. We do know, as I already mentioned, that it's based on the events of the first game and their whole trip across the country, which in the game we really only saw 1 or 2 or 3 major plot points in that journey. But we're going to have to see how it goes, what factors in from the game, what factors in that wasn't in the game, who plays it, how it's done, etc, etc. I'm going to be checking it out, I know that for sure, because thankfully it's based on the first game and not the absolutely awful, abysmal, dire, absolutely shite writing and character development of the second game, so it still has potential. We have no date or anything for it yet, but how do you feel about the casting choices? Let's just hope they don't change the TV show that has to make Pedro Pascal do his little Game of Thrones monologue, but about Ellie.